Greetings, all of my students that will be beginning Architecture 2 next school year. I am going to go over with you right now the user interface for a program that we call Revit. This is the icon for that program, which you'll find on your computer somewhere, probably on your desktop or maybe under your, I don't know, wherever they keep your applications at in Windows, whatever they call that. But the user interface of Revit is very similar to that of AutoCAD. We have our application menu. Actually, no, we don't have an application menu. They took that out of this version. This is 2019. I believe this is the first year they've taken that out of the application menu. So you don't have the application menu anymore, but you do have this thing that says File, which pretty much has the same stuff that your application menu would have in it. Really basic stuff. Then you do have your quick access toolbar across the top, which has tools that you would usually need most often. One that you'll definitely be referring to quite often, of course, here's your undo tool. And if you click on the center arrow that's between the two, the undo and the redo, then you can actually undo a list of commands. By selecting a whole list of commands, you can delete them and kind of start over. Of course, open, save, all of the kind of stuff, print. One that's going to be new to you is this one. It's just your three-dimensional tool. You click on this to get a three-dimensional view. You click on the arrow out next to it and you can get two other types of views. One is a walkthrough, other one is a camera. You'll be using the camera view quite a bit when it comes to taking renderings or pictures of your design. And you can see there in the demonstration how that's going to look. But you can get some really cool renderings with that. So you'll be using those quite often. You have your row of tabs across the top, and those tabs have tools that are associated with those categories, such as the tab that we're in right now, Architecture. You've got a wall tool, door tool, window tool, component, all these tools that go all across here, pretty much a lot like AutoCAD, but more or less made for three-dimensional design. The structure tab will have things like your beams. It also has walls, columns, floors, trusses, connections, all sorts of things. Okay, but we'll be learning more about all of these as we go along. Let's see, and of course this is your ribbon that has all of your tools in it, and of course the ribbon has these sections that are like, here's your build section. Call those panels. So in other words, your build panel. Circulation, such as railings, ramps, and stairs. Room and area. We got model, the model panel right here. Cutting, we can cut certain openings in our design with this panel over here. And you also have, here you also have planes. You can set a plane, you can show planes. I'll click on show plane, then it shows the, right now it's just that one primary plane down there at the bottom. That's something you have to get used to working with in three-dimensional design, is the use of planes. And let's don't do that. Okay. In the drawing area, you have some of the same tools that you have in AutoCAD. You have the view cube, and then you have some other navigational tools over here. Over in this section, you have a properties panel and a project browser. You must leave these open at all times. You're going to need them all the time. And it's just going to slow you down if you shut them down and then have to try and figure out how to open them back up. Which, if that happens, I'll show you how, but only once. Once I show you how, I'll expect you to know how to do it yourself from then on. Okay, but anyway, properties. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go into my project browser and go into level 1. You can see I have my floor plan there for level 1. And the reason I'm doing this is because I just want to show you a few things. So a few things about the user interface. This is called the type selector. As you see, I just clicked on a wall, and this is the type selector. So I can click on the type selector, and it pulls down a whole list of walls. Most of these are default walls. You'll be learning about those, and of course you'll also learn how to make your own wall. And when I say make a wall, I mean making all the different layers of the wall, the drywall, the core structural material, the exterior finish, things like that. There's also an edit type. So if I am in a type, let's say I decide to edit this wall type, which is a very simple wall type. I click on edit type. So again, this is type selector, this is edit type. And then it pulls up a box for me to edit type. And I can change the structure of this wall. And what I would do normally if I was going to change the structure of this wall is I would want to duplicate it. I don't want to write over it, because if I've used this wall anywhere else in my plan, it's going to change that one too. It's going to change every wall that you used this one on. So if you have one wall that you want to change the structure of, you need to duplicate the wall that it's originally made out of, and then go into the structure, which is right here, structure. We'll click on edit, and this is again a very simple wall. Typically there's about 5 to 8 or 10 layers in here, but this is where you would actually change the materials of the different layers of the wall, change their thicknesses, their functions, and everything else. And of course we'll get really deep into that as the year begins. And of course, this is your properties of this particular item, this wall. These are some of the properties that we can, some we cannot adjust. It does give us those properties such as the length, area, and volume right here. And it also has some things we can change, whether it's going to be a structural or not. All sorts of different things regarding the default dimensions and everything else. And that's just better to get used to that later on instead of right now in this video. Then of course the project browser. This is where we go to all of our different levels and different views. Okay, so right now I'm on level 1. This is a single story house, but I still have a level 2, which is pretty much going to be the ceiling level of this house. And that's basically from the ceiling level. You can kind of see where the roof is a bit cut out and what have you. You also have ceiling plans, and this is basically looking just at the ceiling itself at those levels. And that is typically used for lighting, but not always. Those are some things that we'll have to get used to when we're working with this. One is problem solving, because there's so many different variables to this program, and so many different materials that you can get offline that you can download and add to your project. And everything depends upon how the original designer, how they modeled whatever it is that you're using. Even some of the native default items that are in Revit itself. So that's going to be kind of quirky, and you'll have to get used to that. But it's all about problem solving. If you can't do it one way, try and do it a different way. But anyway, to continue on, elevation's already done for us for the most part. Not completely, but for the most part. So that's pretty much the project browser. I mean, you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that you're probably wondering what it is, and we'll go over that in more detail later. And let's see, down at the bottom we have our scale. Typically, you typically work in 1/4 inch scale is the best work in. That's the way your text and your symbols are all a good workable size. This is kind of a status bar. This is where you change some of the status of the overall drawing. There's a few more icons down here, such as selection behaviors and things of that nature. But that is the user interface overall. So hopefully this helped you some. And of course, as you go through the videos that I have for designing a house, I'll actually point some of these things out again as I go. But I figured I would go ahead and give you a precursor to that, so that you'll have a good beginning and you'll kind of know what's going on once we get into Revit.